It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Look, you guys are late. Our Thursday show started more than 12 hours ago. So, Gary, how are you?
Man, I'm telling you, my congressperson is back.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, she's spouting off again.
All right, let's hear it. You got some audio?
Yeah, she was on Jimmy Kimmel.
All right,
here we go.
I don't think that, honestly, policy is what we need to be fighting about. Because guess what? Can't nobody tell you what Donald Trump's policies were.
Do we have to go any further?
Yeah.
Do I have to go any further than that?
No. I'm guessing we will, but you don't have to.
Well, no, I don't need to, because the entire point is it's something that you said a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, if the premise is wrong, everything after that might seem correct, but it's all false because the initial premise was wrong.
They have perfected this to a fine art on the left, starting on a false premise.
If there's ever a president that has been clear on where they stand on the issues, I mean, there may be confusion in some areas, like there is in every presidency. But the fact is, if you tell people, if you go out in the street and say, what does Trump stand for? What are his policies? What's the first thing you're going to hear? Closing the border.
Mm-hmm.
And he succeeded at that, correct?
Yep. Other nations paying their fair share, not just with trade, but also with helping them during wartime and everything else. These are things that he believes. His solutions may not be clear in terms of trade. What he wants may not be clear at the moment in terms of trade. But for decades, long before he ran for office, he espoused those views and held steady to them. Well, in fact, I think you were one of the first in 2016 that said, nobody else is really identifying the issues. And it's what the Wall Street Journal found the day after the 2016 election. Why did Hillary lose, do you think? And why did Trump win? And they were on the streets just doing an informal survey in Harlem. And the common thread was he was identifying problems here at home. She was talking about things everywhere else.
Yeah. I mean,
the left created all those problems in 24. Trump came in with solutions to those problems. This is what we're going to do. We're going to seal the border. And they did that in a matter of weeks.
If there's one, you think about it, you can go back to Reagan. Remember when he used to put out those speeches? And I'm talking about in the 60s.
Yeah.
He would actually put out a record.
Right.
About the things that he believed.
Mm-hmm.
But with Trump, you can go back to the 70s, and then when the talk show circuit became popular, the weekday, midday talk, he was all over it.
Mm-hmm.
He's been promoting what he believes for half a century. Nobody knows it's not about the issues, and nobody knows what Trump believes. I mean, that's such a huge lie, right? Whether you agree with them or disagree with them, that's such a huge lie right there, which is you set up that premise and say, well, what she's trying to do is say it's not about the issues, it's about the style. It's where the Democrats are going right now across the board, which is it's not about the issues, it's just, whether it's, Boss Hogue or her or AOC, everything is about the messaging. One of the things we played is the podcast where Democrats are trying to figure out what's going, what they did wrong, and none of them. I don't know one podcast of actual people that serve in Congress that will look there and say, we're wrong on the issues. We stink on the issues. Now, there are people that aren't in office people that are viewed as, old school like James Carville that gets part of it right.
Mm-hmm.
You get Bill Maher that gets part of it right.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the people in Congress, the Democrats in Congress, I don't know one podcast that they've been on or one interview that they've been on where they get it right, which is you stink on the issues.
Yep.
Are you ready for this, too?
Oh, what do you got?
What did she originally want to be? Here we go. All right.
Okay.
I actually wanted to be an anesthesiologist. So I've always been really good at math and science, but I didn't want to talk to people.
You wanted to put people to sleep, and you kind of are doing the opposite thing now.
Yes, I want them to be woke now.
She said she didn't want to talk to people. Can we make that happen? Can we make her dream come true?
No, I want her to continue to talk.
We're not the shut up and sing show.
It was a weird day yesterday. I mean, it was a really, really weird day. I mean, it was such a weird day that
You and I actually talked on the phone.
yes.
That's what I was saying.
It was a weird
Look,
day.
our show started about, I don't know, it was more than 12 hours ago.
Yeah, that's a rare thing that you and I talked. And we talked on the phone. It was, it was just a couple of minutes after I woke up. Well, I had left you a message.
Mm-hmm.
Did I call you or text you?
You called. Yeah.
Oh, I did call. Okay.
Yeah, it had missed call when I came out.
I woke up, saw a story, and called you, which I never do.
Right.
And when you called me back, I was still just a couple of minutes after I woke up.
Right.
But it was one of the days where I went, oh my gosh, on this particular issue, I agree completely with Steve Bannon. You ready for this?
Okay.
Here's Steve Bannon yesterday.
All right.
Because Trump came out yesterday.
You and I talked about Steve Bannon, by the way, yesterday before you found this audio cut. We had a small discussion about Steve Bannon and everybody that's on social media, the voices on social media and everything else, and how that's going.
And this is I don't know if this was after the president came out and said, no, we're not. I'm not for having taxes on on the rich.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mike Johnson did also an interview yesterday where he said, no, neither am I. So that, for all intents and purposes, is dead. But when I heard Steve Bannon, I went, that's what we said. We've said this consistently here about don't oversell and underperform.
Yeah, right.
And it's basically what he said. Here it is.
So the day of reckoning's here, folks. The simple math is, unless you raise the taxes at the upper bracket, the math doesn't work. The math ain't that great with doing that, but that's kind of a starter. And so anybody wants to show me come back with some math, and what they're going to say is like what Elon said was going to be a 5% growth rate. Well, Elon said a lot of stuff that none of it's turned out to be accurate. Like, where's my $2 trillion in cuts? Where's my $1 trillion in cuts? Where's my $150 billion in cuts? You just show me any cut. That's not programmatic, because the programmatic were being done by other people. Show me waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll take that not
day.
just to Elon Musk. We'll take that on to Capitol Hill. What are they actually going to get done? I think his point was what ours was from the beginning. If you're going to make a claim that you're saving $4 billion a day, you should probably show your work.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, that was widely questioned to begin with, and then when it got down to $150 billion, which just happened to match the amount that they have in the House that they're at least reaching for. The Senate, what were they going to do? $4 billion a year? Was it something just tiny? But $150 billion when Elon Musk last spoke at that cabinet meeting, was that a couple of weeks ago? Down from the $1.4 trillion where it had been before. You can't say those things. You could have said if his point is, and I hate having to walk around this and sound like I'm making excuses for somebody because I shouldn't have to do this. But if your point is like Eric and Gary going in and looking at budgets going, we don't need to be spending money on that. All right, we could deem that waste, but that's not going to be your political win. You're not going to get those kind of programs, those kind of wins done. This isn't a movie. And it's also not the private sector where you're the primary owner and you can come in and make those cuts right away. If you're going to do that, though, then you need to point it out and you need to be clear about that. Look, what do I think they could actually get done on Capitol Hill? And that's what we heard at the last cabinet meeting. It's down to $150 billion. And now you and I, because we've been doing this too long, we have to come in and temper our based on the lack of confidence because of the history of the GOP and failing to do actual cuts. Then we have to apply this and say, we'll see if we can get any cuts, actual cuts done.
I think the thing is, especially with the White House coming in and saying, when they came in, we're gonna do tariffs from day one, and not, and we're going to do things that aren't pro-growth, because tariffs aren't pro-growth.
Right.
Because once you increase the cost of doing business, it doesn't matter whether you're China or the United States, you produce less.
The consumer ultimately pays for that. That's how that works.
You produce less. You may, if you do it, and I don't know whether they're going to now. We don't know after yesterday. But when you increase the cost of doing business, you decrease production of China and the United States. You may decrease the trade imbalance, but you're producing less because costs go up. And that's the point that we've always tried to bring across. And the thing we have said, for example, about China, tariffs should be used if people are involved in unfair trading practices, and you hope that they are temporary. But the messaging of the administration's been all over the place, and yesterday was a perfect day when Besson came out and said what he said. We'll have that audio cut, and then there they skyrocketed again, and then by the time you got to Levitt saying no, we're going after China hard, and then you saw those gains come down, and last I saw, the markets are down again. The futures are down again this morning. And it's just like nobody has any idea still. Every day when you think, you say, okay, there's a little bit of clarity. By the end of the day, there's no clarity on what they want to do. And you had Steve Moore, for example, come out yesterday. Steve Moore, a supporter of Trump, and say the whole thing that the middle class is shrinking is false. And he goes through the statistics from 1980 to 2021. That's not the case.
Right.
You may still want, he's one that believes in tariffs for unfair trading practices, but he said the message that the middle class has been destroyed is just false.
Right.
He goes, it's not the case. And he's a supporter of Trump. Kellyanne Conway came out yesterday and just said small businesses worried. They don't have 2 to 4 years, something that we have said.
Right.
She goes, they have 2 to 4 weeks.
Right.
And you had, for example, a number of media, and again, we're always suspicious of anything that the media says these days, but it would seem to be logical that Walmart and all these retailers went in and said, you're going to have empty shelves by the beginning of summer.
Yeah.
And that's when they decided to temper everything down. But the point would be, well, didn't you know this to begin with? Charles Gasparino from Fox Business said the exact same thing yesterday, and he's a supporter of this of this president. And he goes, why didn't they think of this? He goes, their messaging is all over the place. One person says one thing, the other person says the other thing.
Yeah, they inherited some, when it comes to especially trade with China, they inherited some bad things, but they should have seen that coming in. In fact, of all presidents, this one in particular, his administration should have recognized that.
I'll read what he said. The talk on Wall Street, based on their sources inside the White House, is that Team Trump is looking for a face-saving off-ramp on trade, even with China. It's why you see the conflicting responses out of Besant. They're attempting to negotiate through the media, acting tough, but signaling the need for a deal, calling the China tariffs unsustainable because they are. I hear one possible way out of this, we actually said this yesterday, is not to do done deals, but to announce some broad outline that avoids what people inside the administration know but won't say.
Right.
An economic catastrophe if the original plan with China is implemented, given just how much U.S. business deals with the mainland and the rest of Asia. It won't be easy, primarily because China isn't even talking to us yet, and the deals they are poised to cut with, say, India don't matter that much in the scheme of things. Trump inherited a lousy trade system, particularly with China, that takes advantage at every step. But you would think that they would know that and plan accordingly, given the complexity of dealing with so many nations at once and the other variables.
Yeah, right.
And, yeah, that's a challenge that they face now.
And that's why, again, that's what I've been hearing is that there's, call it a pause or this kind of, the pause really is the only word, but it becomes more of a permanent pause because you say, we're working on a deal, but you don't actually ever get to a deal.
Right.
We're working on a deal. We're going to put it. We're going to shelve it for now. We're going to hit the pause button as if the threat still exists. You could implement the tariffs full on or re-implement the tariffs full on, but you hit the pause button. The markets go crazy. But the problem there is the uncertainty, and it's the same uncertainty that pollutes the bond market. The CEO of Citadel, an investment firm, said that yesterday, something I had been saying, and that is, at one point, U.S. Treasuries were the safe bet, and they're not anymore. That's a problem. If they lose any more credibility globally, that's a big, long-term problem.
866-90-RED-I.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle to help avoid downtime and keep your rig rolling through to next winter. Spring temperature swings can cause your tire pressure to fluctuate. Start your spring maintenance routine by checking your tire pressure and make sure your tires are properly inflated based on the load you're hauling. Underinflated tires cause premature wear, reduced fuel economy, and premature tire failures. Take care of your tires now before you find yourself stranded roadside this spring.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, I mean, yesterday I think might have been a key day because you had more Republicans and Trump supporters come out and say, okay, we need to get something done here. Here's Kellyanne Conway talking about it, former Trump campaign manager for 2016.
There is a concern among many of us that small businesses will suffer first. They have operating capital for 2 or 4 weeks, not 2 or 4 years. And many of them rely on the larger retailers to buy their goods and then resell them or to make their own businesses work. So that's a concern. There are things that we simply cannot make in this country. We can't harvest cocoa. We can't make tequila. That's a blue agave plant in Jalisco, Mexico. Yeah. Almost 100% of all the fireworks for all these great celebrations for President Trump's presidency and for America's upcoming birthday, those are made in China. So I think people are going in and they're stating, they're pleading their case.
And that's going to continue. So how do you get out of it? If you've made the decision that we can't do this, it's not sustainable, and you see it.
Yeah.
You if you wish to call it 27th degree chess or whatever, that's fine. And you saw it online, and I'm not interested in name calling or whatever. I want the economy to be good.
Right.
But we saw what happened once with NAFTA, and we saw the president back out of what he originally wanted. And he did it and claimed victory, and everybody moved on from that particular point. But as we know, USMCA now he looks at as a horrible trade deal. But the fact is he knew politically he couldn't win that at that time. And so USMCA became what NAFTA was, and everybody that supported Trump said, all right, we got rid of NAFTA, but it was the same. And we know what happened with Canada in the first 2 months of his presidency, the things he had to say about them.
The eternal pause is one fix. The problem with the eternal pause, any language mentioned by anybody in the administration, including and especially the president, along the way that says we'll put tariffs back in tomorrow, scares the markets.
Yep.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Let's play Treasury Secretary Bessent yesterday. This is what really made the markets go up early in the morning. All right, here we go. All right.
I wish to be clear. America first does not mean America alone. To the contrary, it is a call for deeper collaboration and mutual respect among trade partners.
That right there, that little segment right there, and you saw the market then skyrocketing up. By the time we got to the afternoon and you had Caroline Levitt speak, it started going the other way. Here's what she had to say.
Let me be clear. There will be no unilateral reduction in tariffs against China. The president has made it clear China needs to make a deal with the United States of America, and we are optimistic that will happen.
All right, and right underneath it says Trump, China tariffs will come down, won't be zero. And then you saw the markets come down. I mean, they were up, what, 900?
Yeah.
They were up like 900?
Yeah.
And then I think it ended at 320. It started coming down in the afternoon because of it, and now the markets. And you know, that's the problem that you have. And as we stated, now you have Trump surrogates, very loyal Trump people coming out and saying, okay, what's going on here and what are we going to do? I mean, it was Stephen Moore, who's been out there saying, you know, the temporary tariffs are good and all this. Mm-hmm. He's a former advisor to the president during his first term. And he said the notion of the hollowing out of the middle class, he posted this yesterday, is a myth. Official census data shows that from 1980 to 2021, real median family income skyrocketed by 50% from 67,000 to 100,000. That's not exactly 50%, though, marking the largest gain in history.
Yeah.
The surge is rooted in Reagan's era embrace of free trade, lower tax rates, and technological advancement, a trend that continued under Clinton and then Trump.
Yeah. I mean, we saw this, during Trump's first term. The buying power of the middle-class families was expanding. The wealth in middle-class families was expanding. You had...
okay, I see what he's saying. All right, when you go back to... 1980... Okay, yeah, 19 it was 67,000. If you look at, if you go all the way back to 1965, it was, and that's real dollars,
right,
figuring inflation in there,
adjusted, yeah,
it was under 40,000,
right,
and now it's 100,000 from there. And if you look at that period of time when we've said, you look at it, and the industrial base has shifted, we all know that,
right, yeah,
we all know that. And the question is, and by the way, I found the thing on the Trump, the audio cut that you talked about yesterday, which was this was wonderful to hear because it mirrors exactly what we have been talking about. You and I have been talking about. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. I've got it here.
Okay.
Here it is. Trump talking about, because we're talking about AI. One of the things we've asked, and I don't know what the answer is, and I want to make sure that, and I know the English commentator and others have been talking about how a lot of what is viewed now as populist, more right podcasts are asking that the questions that they ask are actually leading questions, that you're making a statement by asking a question
right,
and pretending you're dumb.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I saw that like the day after the Douglas Murray thing on it, the day after I had said again, because you and I have always said this. Look, I'm asking a question, and I know that sometimes I'll ask a question, and it's leading to a point. I'm making an opinion. But then I'll say that. And when I ask a question, and I truly don't know, and I'm generally just asking a question out of curiosity, I also say that. I'm not trying to lead, anybody on it.
There are too many elements in some situations for us to know what's going to happen. And I'll say this is an open-ended question, which means I'm not trying to make a point with the question. I'm actually curious.
And we've asked this for the last couple of days. Does AI change everything? does AI change everything where it doesn't matter whether you have cheap labor anymore. Right. If you're going to increase, and you've seen, I don't know what's reputable in extrapolating out AI and how much it will improve efficiency. We went to AI and Google, and they said, well, 20% to 40%.
Well, and that's the thing. The AI in the search mode, in the search engine mode, is crap because it's filled with a lot of wrong information. It gathers all the information.
Right.
And I think I don't know if it's getting better. They say they're trying to make it better. I'll put it that way. But in terms of applying AI to whatever it might be, manufacturing and production, that's, I think, a very good question, and I'll add to it. Dow Chemical is trying to set up a mini nuke plant, their own power plant for their chemical plant. Trump mentioned this recently about setting up for AI.
I have it right here.
Their own power plants.
Yeah.
So if energy and labor are no longer a concern, how does that change trade?
Right.
If they have their own power plant, for AI, they're going to need that for what they need. But Dow Chemical's not an AI company. So if other companies are in manufacturing are looking to, if they could get it done, their own small nuke plant, their own power plant, and have their own contained power plant off the grid, if you want to go YouTube, then how does that change the trade situation or the attraction to manufacture in the States?
How much? It's a combination of how much electricity we can produce to run AI, and then ask the question: how much of a productivity gain will we get from AI, and what will be the point when that productivity gain makes it where cheap labor doesn't matter anymore?
Right.
I don't know how you figure that out, but that would be my question. Because if you get to that point, then it can be pure free trade without worrying about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Trump talks about how the United States right now is still leading in AI. Here it is.
Yeah, right.
Here's that audio cut that you were talking about.
We're number one in AI by far. We're leading China by a lot, by tremendous amounts. We're going to supply electricity at levels never supplied before. They're going to build their own electric. We're going to let them become a utility, essentially. And it's going to be amazing for the country. They're going to build their own electric plants. We have to double up our electricity to remain number one in AI. We're going to have to double up our electricity take our whole country. We're going to have to double up our electricity. Think of that. And probably even triple it up. And we're going to let them build their own electric plants with their plant that they're building for the AI or whatever they're doing. We're number one in.
There you go. And that's the undercut you were mentioned yesterday, right?
Right.
Okay.
And what's required for energy for AI, and then you apply that to now apply the AI, right? Because again, your question on how does it affect labor costs, which have been a big driver to moving operations overseas out of the U.S. But how does it affect it long term, and then if those companies can also, like Dow Chemical's looking to do, that aren't AI, also can secure their own energy plant, their little mini energy plant for their operation. You don't worry about things like, well, in Texas, what we talked about yesterday, all the back and forth and all the, wind power and solar and everything else. And we're just, our minds are boggled at how Texas is operated, in this. The energy producing state shouldn't have a problem delivering energy. But if these companies are setting up their own little grids, their own power, where it's going to be reliable, it's going to be cheap because they're going to own it. And they have cheap labor.
Well, here's the point, though, NIMBY.
Well, AI labor. Yeah.
NIMBY.
That's the problem
because
on nuke.
If it's natural gas and we have what you needed, fine.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be. But if you say nuke, I don't care what anybody says. Well, we need to go nuclear power.
That's
where are you going to put it?
The canary in the mine right now is Dow Chemical, I think, in that regard, because they have applied and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
They're down there on the Texas coastline.
And so you look at it. We're not going back to people working on assembly lines, putting, connecting, putting widget A into slot B.
Right.
That's not happening.
Right.
And one of the things with AI, well, these are highly technical jobs, and we don't have the system of education set up to. Well, then you need to get there.
Yeah.
Supply and demand has to get you there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there's the thing. Well, but people don't want to. There are going to be a lot of jobs. For example, robotic and AI maintenance. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
And
engineering jobs are going to go through the roof.
Right. And so you're going to need highly technical people, but we don't have them and other countries do. Well, that's not the other country's fault. That's our fault.
Yeah. Right.
And how do you do that?
We got to change. There has to be a change in focus.
Right.
There has to be a shift. Otherwise, you can't meet that demand.
Right.
And the demand also created by, it's a compounding effect of demand when things start happening on the AI front that create certain efficiencies in our lives. Today, nobody wants to be without their cell phone. You go back 25 years and people didn't want, I remember I'm married to one of those people, didn't want to have a phone with her everywhere because she didn't want people to be able to reach her all the time. I'm going shopping. But no, I mean, there was this threshold that people, and then finally when the smartphone, with the advent of the smartphone, and the efficiencies created in our lives, and they're mostly good ones, then you can look at that and say, okay, now AI is going to create those types of efficiencies that we're not going to be able to live without, which by the way, tempers the ability, doesn't diminish completely the ability, but it tempers the ability for new regulation coming in. There will be plenty of new regulation. But when we have that demand, imagine they came in, I mean, they couldn't even shut down TikTok. And it's owned by China.
Yeah.
Because people were screaming here in the States. That's,
right.
So that kind of demand, not that TikTok creates efficiencies, by the way, I'm not making that point at all. But if AI gets to the point of creating efficiencies in our lives, we're going to have that demand. The point being, that kind of demand, as you just mentioned, it's the demand that will drive the difference in the educational choices of what we're going to have as a society going forward. Because quite frankly, the generation now doesn't want to be on an assembly line. Many of them just don't. I'm grateful we have service techs in the bays of automotive and diesel techs in the bays to keep trucks rolling. We should thank our lucky stars that young people still want to do the hands-on work.
But it pays well.
It pays very well, and it is incorporating a lot of technology. I mean, you really have to be an engineer.
Yeah.
Your mind has to be an engineering mind.
Well, that's why when people say, well, I've got a college degree and I'm pretty intelligent, or we hear the media, well, college-educated people, meanwhile, the people in the trades, implying that the people in the trades are stupid.
Oh, please.
I worked in the trades, and I'll tell you this, the majority of people in the trades are a lot smarter than most college-educated people that I've met, if they're not in engineering or science or whatever.
Right, especially in the practical sense.
Oh, absolutely.
And so those are the things that
they understand how the world works a lot better.
Exactly.
How do we know? Because they're the ones that make the world work.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, my gosh. Just looking at the Babylon Bee headlines. Just, oh, my gosh. Oh, it's just so bad. Easter Bunny dead after meeting with J.D. Vance. Oh, my gosh. Wow. But this one I didn't understand for a second. Then I realized it all relates to Joe Biden.
Oh.
And remember, it comes from the Babylon Bee that is a Christian parody.
Right.
Service,
right?
Just so you don't think I'm being sacrilegious in any way.
Or they're being sacrilegious.
Or they're being sacrilegious. I'm just reading it out. Well, because the messenger can also be blamed.
Right.
CNN, behind closed doors, Pope is still focused, sharp, and energetic. I read that. When I first read that, I went, I don't get it. And I'm for a couple seconds, also I went, oh, Biden.
The Biden thing.
The Biden thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Oh, man.
Wow. All right. It's, it's Mad, back in the day, Mad Magazine, because you've always called Babylon Bee the Mad Magazine for grown-ups. Back in the day, Mad Magazine wishes they had this kind of political environment. The thing is back then, Mad Magazine, those writers had to wait for the evening news or the newspaper tomorrow morning. With the Babylon Bee, they've got stuff that's incoming, that's fodder for their writing.
Yeah, you're right.
Every minute.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here, as always.
Thank you.
When we talk about the entire tariff situation and the economy in general, one of the things I've always said about Trump, Trump wants to do something about the unfair trading practices.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the intentions of Trump are to make the United States better. This isn't the version of Trump trying to be Biden by opening the border.
Yeah, right.
I don't understand. I don't know how he thinks about economics,
right?
Because he is all over the place. But I think he does want to do the right thing. One of the things that we brought up, and we said this in the very beginning, we said, look, economics is going to decide this.
Mm-hmm.
And as you see, the president continually responds to economics.
Yeah, right.
And that's what you've seen, because the market is part of economics. Treasury bills are part of economics. Everything is built on how people respond to incentive. You're not going to change that.
Nope.
It's pure failure when people say, well, when you have the so-called experts say, but if the public only did this, the public should only do that. If the public did that, the public is going to, people act in their own self-interest. That's just the reality, and you can't change that. What they view as their self-interest is how they're going to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing, and what you hear is, well, then we need to change what is important to them in their self-interest. We need to teach them, you're not going to do it when it comes to economics.
If they have limited funds and what they can spend, price point is always going to be the leader, period.
Right. And the one thing that did shock us is there didn't seem to be early on any recognition that prices matter to the American public.
Right.
You can say it doesn't.
Or shouldn't.
It's like I can sit there and I can go to, I probably could interview 100 Americans and say, should we all buy American? And they'd all say yes.
Right.
But
Bernie.
Except Bernie.
Buy Russian.
No, don't buy American. There's too many choices of deodorants. People don't remember that.
Oh my God.
Bernie a few years back said the problem with capitalism is, for example, you get into a store and there's 50 deodorant selections that you can choose from.
Right.
We don't need 50 deodorants.
Meanwhile, he and AOC take a private jet to go to an anti-Trump rally.
Climate change.
And climate change rally and also anti-oligarch rally.
Exactly.
They're getting off a private jet
But what he said was, we're wasting manpower by producing too many choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That manpower could be put elsewhere to help humanity.
Right.
Well, again, what you're doing is you're saying that I don't like the way that people act and people should act this way. Why are there, and I have no idea whether it's 50 deodorants. I don't know what's out there.
I only use one.
Well, is that the deodorant now? That now they've got, what is it? Is it not? I forgot what it's called. Is it an M or something?
Mm-hmm.
The deodorant body rub, whatever that.
Oh yeah, the full body deodorant.
The full body comes in the tube now,
I won't have to take a shower for 6 months.
Yes,
stuff.
Yes, that stuff.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Well,
go to lazy.com.
Well, it really is interesting when you go in. You're like, well, this deodorant doesn't say how many hours.
Yeah,
Then you have these other or the body washes.
Yeah,
and remember the body washes start out. This lasts for 8 hours. Then I saw one. This is a 24-hour body wash. Then the other one, 48-hour body wash. I'm like, my gosh, you must have a very strong smell the first couple of hours coming from your skin.
And then, it started with the dry shampoos.
Yeah.
Take a bath.
Yeah.
Use some water and some soap. Try that.
But the fact is, there are that many because they're selling it.
Yeah.
And people can make a profit. That's the way that the market works.
Right.
People act in their own self-interest. And that's, I think, one of the biggest examples because, Bernie said, that's I can't imitate him, but that's the problem that with capitalism is that we have too many choices. And it's like, well, no, we don't. We don't have too many choices because if you have too many choices, the market will stop buying some of those choices.
Some people have too many choices in the number of homes they own.
Bernie Sanders, right. You don't need, what does he have now, 3 homes?
I think it's 3.
Is it 3?
I know it's at least 2.
Well, I only have 1 home.
Right.
I don't have 3 homes. I only have 1 home.
Technically, I have 2. One of them is a small camper trailer. But I can live in it. I've done it.
You going to do van life?
No. I have a house.
Well, I will say this, or just get off the topic for a second. The van life stuff really interests me, except for the black tank.
Yeah.
I can deal with the gray tank.
Well, the black tank isn't a thing. It's not a deal. It's not a, you would be surprised how easy it is.
Well, that's what I heard. Now, are the macerators good, the stuff that grinds it all up?
No, actually, they're finding out the hard way. You don't want to do that.
No, you don't want the macerator?
Yeah.
You just want
you do what you want to do, but I've seen the people that go, "Oh, we're not doing that again." The earth-friendly version wasn't water earth-friendly. I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, they've got the dry, I like the dry toilets or the one.
Yeah, the dry toilets are especially getting bad feedback.
Are they getting bad feedback?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
They don't wrap correctly?
Yeah, and you realize, again, what you're dealing with ultimately is the same thing.
Well, yeah, it's just in a bag instead of a hose.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
the one I do like the best,
same stuff, different day,
is the one that after you do your business, it incinerates it. But there's such a huge power draw that most battery systems can't handle it. There are some vans that have the battery systems that can handle it, but a lot of them use propane.
Right.
But the thing is, it's like, well, no, I just want, if I ever got, which I will never get a van because of the price point, but if I ever got one, I would want it, just one power. I would want all electricity to do everything. And I know there's a couple of people that build specialty vans that actually have so much battery power for their incinerating toilet.
Yeah.
The incinerating toilet I like, but that thing has to, would I use it all the time? Probably not. But what discouraged me is, and I've got a couple of old friends that retired and went into van life. And I mean the Class B fans.
Yeah.
And I went, well, that really sounds good. I go, well, I don't know if I want to live in it, but I mean, it'd be a great thing to travel and everything else. I wonder how much this probably cost. Well, Okay, with everything, probably under 100,000. No, for everything that I want, it'd be like $250,000.
Yeah, what you're looking for is a house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I went, 250,000. But it's what I want. It's the style I want. It's got everything that I want. It's what?
Oh,
250,000.
no. I've got friends that have over $1 million in there, and it's a huge. It's luxury tour bus level.
Yeah, that I wouldn't want. That'd be too big. That would be too big for me. But even the 250,000, I went, okay, what's insurance cost on that? Okay, what's maintenance? I know the maintenance first, but that's got millions apart. It breaks all the time, and then
it's a vehicle. I mean,
right?
Yeah,
and so you figure all the expenses that come with it, and I sat down with a piece of paper, and I went, okay. Why don't I just buy a real nice vehicle? This is if I was going to retire, but I'm not going to retire, so this is, again.
Right.
But I still like to figure these things out once I see it. It's like, because I'm fascinated with things that I think I would want to do that I actually in reality wouldn't want to do, but I see people doing it, and I'm fascinated by, do you really like that life doing that? But I realize that I could, for the next, 30, 40, for the next half century, and I won't be alive that long, I could stay in a hotel like 4 months a year and still not come close to what the overall cost would be to have a van that long. And then you'd want a new one or update it and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I can go and I never have to empty a black tank or a gray tank. The hotel takes care of it for me.
And they make your bed.
And they make the bed for you, and they clean up and do all that. So the whole van life thing, I just said,
I love the camper thing because the camper, and I went with a small camper because I don't want to be inside. I don't want to buy something, pay all that money to sit inside of something, right? I mean, when you're sleeping, that's great. But I sleep, by the way, the best sleep I get is in my camper. But I want the camper because I'm going to be outside, not inside. I mean, I've got a full kitchen. I've got everything. I've got a shower. I've got a bathtub. I've got everything. Sleeps 8. It's great. But I don't want the big luxury thing because, well, I have a house. That's my big luxury thing. If I wanted to spend time indoors, inside, that would be one thing. Traveling, I can see why people do it, but that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah, so it's like, nah, I'm just going to continue working, and if I want to go somewhere, I'll stay in a hotel. Now, that's one thing I wonder if, and again, I don't know what's going to happen with the tariffs, is what we started this whole conversation with, but what's the prices of some of those things going to go up to?
The hotels?
Vans.
Oh.
The Class B van, RVs and things like that. But as, getting back to the whole tariff situation, I believe the president wants the United States to do fantastic business-wise. I just have no idea why. It's one of the things we have said. Does he not know how intertwined businesses are worldwide right now?
Well, word is they're certainly being told.
Well,
because they've got countless businesses that are lobbying right now directly to the White House.
Well, lobbying investment, tariff lobby spending up 277% from last year, of course, are all lobbying for it.
Yeah.
But one of the examples is when he said, okay, we're not going to make everything in the United States. We're not going to do it. This is why I called Navarro an idiot back then and ticked off some people. You notice Navarro's out now. Elon Musk didn't call him an idiot. He called him a moron. You can't do it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The cost of producing everything for us to consume here, the American public would never go for.
Right.
And it was always, all right, we're coming out of inflation. We still have inflation. I mean, significant inflation above the mark that the Fed wants. And so we always said, do pro-growth first. If you're going to challenge China, to me, it's a multi-year thing where you build solid free trade agreements with no tariffs with all the friendlies.
Right.
And that's what you do. I think it was horrible strategy to go after Canada. You notice there's no talk about Canada at all now. None. Zero. And he ended up agreeing with everything that was in NAFTA. Or excuse me, the new NAFTA, USMCA. But everything is really quieted down there. To me, I've always thought, and you and I have talked about this for decades, you isolate China by building the free trade agreements. You build new free trade agreements with South America, with Central America. You make sure that Europe, and I don't know whether Europe will come aboard. I mean, Europe, in economically speaking, at times is completely Neanderthal in their thought process.
Right.
And so you look at it, but you build, that's what you do. You look to build that, and then you isolate China. But you can't do that by saying we're going to take on the whole world right now because we're the biggest economy. We're the biggest economy in the world. We're not bigger than the world economy if they attempt to use retaliatory tariffs against us.
Right.
Well, and so that's always been the problem. It is, and the intertwining of, and that's why when he said auto parts 45%. Well, you've got the OEMs now, and you've got dealerships screaming. They met with the president earlier this week, or late last week, I think it was, one or the other, screaming, you can't do this. We can't assemble in the United States. Well, everything needs to be produced. Every part of every car needs to be produced in the United States. That's not happening. You're not going to have equal trade with every country. It's not going to happen. Those were some of the benchmarks that he set down 3 weeks ago. And then they've been all over the place. So one of the concerns that we've always had is, you know more about what Eric and I think about the economy than you do any president of the United States. You may have the general thing of what they want, but they never get into specifics. And right now, I have no idea what this president wants. I have no idea. None. And neither do you. Neither does anybody out there. You may be able to say, fentanyl. Well, he barely talks fentanyl at all anymore. That's not really it. It's not about reciprocal tariffs. It was about equal trade between everybody, but that's been now dropped. So who knows? And what you bring is confusion to the market, which means nobody's going to invest until they're comfortable with where the United States is going to go. They're not going to take their money and invest in the United States. They're not going to invest in Treasury bills unless they know where the United States is going, and nobody has any idea. And every day, different people from the White House are saying different things. And Republicans are worried now. That's what you saw yesterday.
And I think that's why, you're seeing what you're seeing right now on Capitol Hill, and that's going to create more rifts within the party, by the way, which you don't have room for rifts in the House or the Senate. Everybody's going to have to be on the same page with the White House.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Managing time is key. Successful owner-operators know that simply running hard is not enough. If it were that easy, anyone could do the job and expect the profits to roll in. It generally pays to slow down. There is a trade-off in higher costs, not to mention the increased risk for driving fast. If driving slower takes time away from you, you could find some of the ways to get it back. Never take time off during the last 2 weeks of the quarter or the last week of the month, when freight typically is abundant. Sometimes it works to your advantage to look for loads that take you through home rather than to home. The latter can interrupt your revenue stream and require additional time to get back up to full speed again. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Dick Durbin isn't going to run.
Yeah, he's done, huh?
The number 2 Democrat in the Senate, who said one of the worst things ever.
Yep.
Back when was it? 2004, 2005?
Yeah,
we were working together. Maybe it was later.
Yeah.
When he compared American troops to the genocidal murderer Pol Pot.
Mhm.
Never forget that.
Yep.
What a piece of dirt.
Yeah.
And by the way, there was no evidence, and it was a false statement to make.
Of course.
He had no problem. Go.
Yep.
But state of Illinois elected him over and over
Over
and
and
over and over
Yep.
and over and
Yep.
over and over
Yep.
again.
Yep.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose.
And thank you.
Yes. Reading here, not 60 Minutes. CBS anchors salute outgoing 60 Minutes producer, say effort to settle Trump lawsuit tied to corporate merger. CBS Evening News anchors paid tribute to the outgoing 60 Minutes producer while being candid about the corporate pressure the network is facing from President Donald Trump. Finally, tonight, a story that is personal for us here at CBS News. John Dickerson told viewers at the end of Tuesday's newscast, our friend and colleague Bill Owens announced Tuesday he is stepping down as executive producer of 60 Minutes. In more than a half a century on the air, 60 Minutes has prided itself on independent reporting, but Owens said he was no longer allowed to run the broadcast that it's been run and to make independent decisions. He went on to acknowledge that 60 Minutes was at the center of the Trump lawsuit against the network, and then said CBS's parent Paramount Global is trying to resolve this suit as it works to complete a merger that needs government approval. You saw that other one, though. Paramount and CBS settled a discrimination lawsuit over DEI policies punishing straight white males. That one was a little under the radar, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As CBS and their parent company navigate a high-stakes lawsuit from President Donald Trump, the media conglomerate quietly settled another lawsuit alleging racial discrimination against straight white male employees. In 2024, former SEAL team script coordinator and writer Brian Benecker and sued Paramount Global, CBS, and CBS Studios for unlawful discrimination for repeatedly denying him career advancement based on his race, sex, and sexual orientation. According to America First Legal, who represented him in the case, both sides ultimately agreed to a settlement after what the America First Legal counsel, Nick Berry, described as satisfactory moves by Paramount to publicly back away from DEI policies. America First Legal is pleased to see Paramount and CBS publicly back off their DEI requirements and return to merit-based considerations. That's where the discrimination comes. Mark Cuban, are you listening?
I'm Mark Cuban. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Who could possibly see anything wrong with that?
Wow, it's like Mark is sitting right next to me. Sounds exactly like him.
Does it? That's
yeah.
I mean, remember when he said that, though?
Yeah.
Like, who would be against that?
Well,
Mark.
What do you mean Luka was traded? You know what I was waiting for him to say? I learned about it the same way you guys did in the headlines. You're still part owner of the team.
Yeah. No, and remember what he told the fans.
In charge of operations.
He told the fans he was in charge of basketball operations, and he was not. Well, it wasn't in the contract. That's not what you communicated.
Yep. Nope.
Yep. And everybody knows it. But, it's like anti-racism today is racism.
Yeah, right.
DEI
right,
is discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
Don't care. Doesn't matter what you call it.
No.
You can call it anything you want. That wasn't the reality of what was going on.
Mm.
What I find interesting is now you've got the mainstream media going crazy. Media has always been commercial media has always been under pressure. You and I, even though we have never been told that anything that we have said we need to retract. Ever.
Right.
Never happened to me ever in my entire career. Never have I been told by management to apologize for anything that I've ever said on the air.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know there are some things I could say that management would say, you can't say that.
Yeah.
You can't say it because it could cost us our license.
Right.
That pressure has always been there, and the mainstream media is trying to make, the liberal media is trying to make this case. They're shocked that exists out there.
Mm.
It's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of CBS, it was obvious what they were doing.
Yep.
Because we're talking about how they, what was in the trailer of Kamala Harris, the promotional mention was different, or the shortened version, I think on the Sunday morning news shows, was different from what was in the actual broadcast.
Oh, yeah.
To make her sound more intelligent. And Trump sued and said, this is election interference.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're trying to make her smarter. Now, he could lose that lawsuit. I don't know what's going to happen to it.
Right.
And so, well, they're trying to merge and they need the approval, and that might cause some problems. That's always the government, the FCC, when you're on radio stations, we're conservative talk show hosts. And if they don't like something, the government, has in the past, remember the push of members of Congress. We need to get rid of conservative talk radio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Democrat members of Congress.
Yep.
We need to go back. If they continue doing it, we need to go back to the fairness doctrine. And the fairness doctrine means nobody will be doing any type of opinion radio because it's impossible to do what the fairness doctrine wanted to do. And that's why there really wasn't talk radio beforehand.
Right.
Because it's like, well, if you're a radio station and you promote one point of view, you must promote all different points of view and give them equal time. Mm-hmm. Well, there aren't just 2 points of view. How do you do that, and how do you give them equal time?
Well, again, it gets back to, the whole fairness thing. Who decides fair?
Exactly. And the government gets involved in it. Remember when talk radio first started? Radio broadcasters and programmers should have known, but they didn't know, and they thought, oh, okay, let's put on a conservative talk show host, then we'll put on a liberal talk show host. And they found out that for the most part, the liberal talk show host failed.
Yeah, right.
There were other areas for them to, get their word out, but it wasn't conservative talk. It wasn't when conservative talk radio was on a station. For whatever reason, it drew a more conservative audience.
Right.
So those liberal shows ended up failing. They tried a few liberal networks. The liberal networks failed. There really isn't, outside of NPR, there really aren't, very many liberal talk show hosts. It's probably, 95 to 5%, maybe?
Yeah, if that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a way. And it's not that radio station owners, because radio station owners play all sorts of music formats.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's they simply look and go, what works? One of the problems is any radio station, radio for so long has been you listen to a particular format of music.
Right. Well,
and it's a formatic thing of, okay, we're conservative and we're a conservative station. We may have a news department, but this is what sells. We can sell this because it gets ratings. Liberal radio, and again, NPR still gets, some government funding, but if they wish to do it in some markets, and NPR does very well in some of the liberal markets.
Right, yeah.
They do very well with the ratings. They could sell that commercially.
Yeah, sure.
But for the most part, the kind of radical left, because what you got from leftist radio was bizarreness. I mean, you got the most, basically you'd be listening to AOC.
Yeah.
Some of these talk show hosts on the left were just bat soup crazy.
Right, yeah.
And it just didn't work. Not all conservative talk show hosts succeed.
No.
And but this whole thing that, can't believe it's out there, pressure from management because of government regulation. We've always dealt with it on the conservative side.
Sure. And with that fairness doctrine garbage, if you're looking to give a voice to all opinions, well, it would take an entire month to air all the differing opinions just within the Republican Party. Right? Chip Roy goes first. And then Massey. Or they can flip a coin to see which of those two goes first. But and because that's, something we've dealt with, where we now only have a handful of conservatives that are out there.
Yeah, true conservatives in Congress, yeah.
And so
fiscal conservatives.
Fiscal conservatives especially, yes. Yeah, there are other, social conservatives.
Yeah, they're pretty united on the social conservative
Yeah,
issues.
I think so.
But fiscally, it's all over the place.
Right. And to me, that's the only thing, that's the one thing that it's one of the required elements, in my opinion, to be a true conservative. If you can't be a fiscal conservative, I don't know that I could call you a true conservative.
Well, because
I would have to separate it. I would have to hyphenate your conservatism.
Well, because property rights, which is you get to keeping your property, is pretty important, or used to be pretty important to people that call themselves conservative.
I thought it was just me, but thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's just silly that that we're at that point, but we are. And again, if they had to go in and be even Steven radio, there's no such thing, because there are varying opinions. Well, within the left, up first would be Rahm Emanuel, and then AOC, and then Jasmine Crockett, and then I think we're back to Rahm Emanuel. It's a short broadcast schedule, but that's that is the problem with because it implies that there are only two sides, and there aren't.
No, not anymore. No.
It's and again, define fairness. Well, the fairness doctrine, fairness is defined by lawmakers, by people who run your life.
Unfortunately, they're the ones defining fairness.
Right. The marketplace is the only thing that can define fair. Period. Because it comes down to the parties involved, whether it's two parties or multiple parties. I'm not going to judge your party. If you want multiple parties, that's your choice. But if it's two parties, if it's the parties involved, all the parties involved in that decision define ultimately what's fair. When someone dictates what's fair, and everybody goes, "Oh, I think that's fair," unless you've got teeth in the game, nobody cares.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So when I see that from CBS and then, even on some of the liberal networks, it's like, the independence is gone from the media. Oh, shut up.
Yeah.
That's always been there. I've been in the media, almost 45 years now. It's always been that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's always limitations of what you can say. You can't, for example, there are, things that are obscene that you can't do. And if you do, you can lose your license. We've lost our independence.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things you can do where, again, when it comes to the government, and we know because we've worked under Democrat administrations where they've talked about we need to get rid or we need to bring back the fairness doctrine because they know it will destroy conservative talk radio.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always been that way. And all of a sudden, they're feeling it because of the irresponsible actions of their editors when it came to Kamala Harris and for CBS, their DEI that they just settled for it.
Yep.
Settled a lawsuit for.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what? We're held accountable for our actions and the things that we actually say?
Yeah.
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 And then pressure comes from corporate and sponsors and government. Well, yeah.
That's the way it's always worked.
Welcome to the real world.
Yeah. We want our independence. In other words, they want to be activists.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Are you ready for this? This went viral yesterday. I don't know who did it. I don't know if it was a Republican group or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit funny, and it is about, it's a commercial, basically a tourism commercial for El Salvador. Here we go.
All right.
Welcome to El Salvador, home to breathtaking sunsets, world-class surf breaks, and gangbanger Kilmer Abrego Garcia. El Salvador is the destination for Democrats seeking the thrill of bringing violent criminal illegal aliens back to America. Come witness Trump derangement syndrome in its purest form. From Chris Van Hollen to Cory Booker. You may even see John Ossoff. So what are you waiting for, Senate Democrats? Join your colleagues and step into the rhythm of rescue today.
It says a Senate GOP group, and it's targeting Senate Democrats, but man, it's just...
I love that.
And they've got, it shows the beaches and everything else, and it's
like,
wow.
Sip margaritas.
Reading this here from Breitbart. Democrat consultants panic over lawmakers defending accused MS-13 member. We need to step back. Wow. Democratic consultants behind the scenes are panicking over the prospect that voters will side against Democrats for defending Garcia. Said one Democrat consultant told TheHill.com. People can't afford eggs, and you're flying to sit with someone who's accused of being in a gang. Democrats want to think that everyone has the same morals and values that we do, and we want to think that everyone's outraged by the same things that we are, and we want to be the ones to help people and stand up for the moral injustices. That doesn't necessarily win elections, though. And last cycle was proof positive of that. The operative continued. We need to step back and wait for someone to be deported who really has a real compelling story that's devastating, that the average Joe is upset about. That person hasn't presented themselves yet, and the Democrats are battling their better instincts and should not just hop at the first sign of any injustice.
Well, I don't know who the consultant, the operative, thinks they're working for or with. But that's the party of today. That's who the party is. The radicals lead the party. They don't care what any moderate has to say. In fact, they think the problem is they don't have enough radical voices. David Hope.
The consultant noted that Van Hollen has refused to meet with the Marin family, whose loved one, 37-year-old Rachel, was brutally raped and beaten to death by an illegal alien MS-13 gang member back in 2023.
Right.
Marin's rape and murder is known as the most horrific crime in Hartford County, Maryland history. The hit on Van Hollen is that he'll fly to El Salvador on taxpayer dollars and meet with a guy who's accused of being in a gang, but he won't meet with the family of gang victims in his home state, is a very fair hit, that Democrat consultant told The Hill. By the way, the Democrat consultant, I guess it's a source they used, they wanted anonymity.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, when I say they, I'm not using the proper pronoun. I should have said he or she. Told The Hill, and The Hill is not a conservative Republican publication.
Right, and they want that anonymity so they can keep their job as consultants. Because the radicals aren't going to hire them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And so, wow.
Well, but, that's something, it sounds like the anonymous source here is somebody over at Fox News pointing out the obvious, or, a critical thinker. Again, I don't know why they would choose to be consultants for the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is off the rails, bat soup crazy, period.
Well, when they sit there and say, we want to be the ones, the consultant said this, to help people and stand up for the moral injustices, that doesn't necessarily win elections, though. You're still being delusional.
Well,
that's the point. Even the consultant is still, well, we're right. It's just the public doesn't agree with the fact that we're right.
Again, stating this, this premise here. Oh, we want to help the downtrodden. We want to right the wrongs. My gosh, were you a consultant in 1890? The Democratic Party hasn't been that in a long. Let me rephrase that. The Democratic Party hasn't pretended to be that in a long time. They care nothing about people. They care nothing about the United States. They care nothing about the actual victims of crime. They're giving deference to the criminals, to those who are not here legally, and giving no attention to the victims of crimes and their families, and they have been doing that forever. It's been going on for a long time. So again, that's why I bring up, what were you, a consultant in 1890? They haven't even pretended to be anything but who they are as radicals, and it's been going on for far too long, and they're not done. They need louder voices, they say.
Oh.
The problem isn't that the polls disagree with what we're doing. It's that we need to chant louder. We need to scream louder to get people to submit to our agenda. That's where the Democratic Party is.
And let me find the Tim Walz cuts.
Yeah.
The audio cut. I believe it was from, wait a minute here. Do we have it here? This isn't.
You got it?
No, I'm sorry. That was the Ro Khanna thing saying, I'm fighting to forgive, cancel student loans. So you're not canceling them. You're transferring to other people.
Right.
Once you break it down, we've always talked about that, because once you break it down to the American people, you're like, well, no, actually, they're not forgiven. They're transferred to people who didn't take out the loan.
Right.
Is that morale? Well, once you explain it to people, they go, well, no, that's not moral. Should the government make you more morally obligated to pay the student loan than the person who took it out?
You're not a party to it.
Right. But we'll get to that in a second. But I want to get to Tim Walz. Here he is talking about what the problem is, that we got ourselves into a mess because they did not embrace illegal immigration, wokeness, and DEI. I mean, they're just, what type of drug is he doing?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I want to quote Huey Lewis, I need a new drug.
I'm not sure I want that drug.
I mean, but it's got to be, they walk around, reality means nothing to them, yet they're able to, I don't know, earn a living?
Yeah.
But here's Walz at a town hall, okay? Here we go.
That our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on DEI, and we let them define what woke is. We got ourselves in this mess because we weren't bold enough to stand up and say, you damn right we're proud of these policies. We're going to put them in, and we're going to execute them.
Well, it was you were part of the team that embraced what Trump was supporting, Mr. Walz. Yep. You remember the first thing you say, we got this into this mess because we didn't embrace immigrants. Excuse me.
Kamala was going to build a wall.
You're the one that joined the team. The first commercial that came out was, Trump isn't serious about the border. I am, and I'll get this wall built. You were part of that.
Yep.
I will say this. I did look because he talked about our strength is our diversity, and I'm looking in the crowd. There's very little diversity in the crowd.
Oh.
Everybody has a particular skin color.
Yeah. Funny how that works.
Yes.
Like the DNC, when they were selecting their new leaders for their party, they went through their entire DEI motion for what, a couple of days? And then selected two white guys.
Yeah, I know. Same thing here. Now, to show you how the craziness continues, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. I didn't think I was going to have as much fun as I did 2 days ago. I may end up having more fun before the weekends.
Yeah, well, we might. It's only Thursday.
Because I read this headline. When I read the headline wrong in my head.
Oh, all right.
It says James Carville, Serpent, as we all know. James Carville questions if Americans should wait until Trump is Hitler before taking action. Now, when I read that, not when you read it, when I read it, I said, oh, okay, what he's chastising, he's going after the Democratic Party, saying, look, Trump isn't Hitler, so before you take action and before you, whatever you wish to do, he should at least be Hitler first. I thought he was chastised. He's not. Longtime Democratic strategist James Carville questioned on Wednesday whether Americans should wait until President Donald Trump becomes Hitler before taking action against his administration. The former advisor to President Bill Clinton made the comments on the latest episode of his Politics War Room podcast titled, Is Trump Really Hitler? Carville brought up CNN host Michael Schmerkonis's recent commentary claiming that while people may hate Trump, he is not Hitler and should not be treated as such. Carville pushed back against Smerkolnik's claim, asking, do we really want to wait until he's Hitler? He questioned, at what point do you say this guy is a threat? Wow.
Yeah.
He also referenced comedian Larry David's recent satirical New York Times guest essay titled My Dinner with Adolf. Wow.
Yeah.
So Carville's now losing it.
Well, you know, the full-on radicalism, and I do mean full-on, this isn't hyperbole here, of the left, we're reaching that point because the way that they're talking, when you have people on the left saying we need an army of Luigis, when you have a United States lawmaker, AOC, justify the murder of Brian Thompson by saying, well, when people get their claims denied because he was a healthcare CEO, they see that as an act of violence. This is what we have talked about, and they're still winning elections.
And when you have a representative and representatives of the Democratic Party claim that Trump is Hitler when they have mainstreamed Jewish hatred and Israel hatred, and they are calling the man who defends, the president who defends Israel as Hitler, that isn't a very convincing argument to the majority of the public.
Right.
Because that's what they're doing.
Yep.
The party that has mainstreamed Jewish hatred, the Democratic Party, is calling Trump Hitler. And Trump backs the Jewish people.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. And they claim that they wish to moderate in some way. And at the same time, the Carville's making the statement, he has admitted that identity politics, which is judging people by groups and not individuals, which is where you get racism from, is a huge problem for the Democratic Party.
Right.
Do they ever look at the scope of what they believe, the umbrella, and say, oh, by the way, what I think over here completely contradicts what I think over here? Do they ever for a moment think that?
I just don't think they care. Whatever because in that way, in terms of their lack of logic, they're like children. They're all over the place.
I know. And then Walls. We got ourselves into this mess because we didn't embrace DEI, wokeness, and illegal immigration enough. Are you kidding me? I mean, they're completely delusional.
Right. You were part of it. Governor.
Yeah. Well, of course they embraced it, and then what happened is they knew they couldn't win. So the team of Harris and Walz pretended they were more MAGA than Trump.
You know, David Hogue probably needs to have a word with the governor. Hey,
Yeah,
you're part of it. You weren't radical enough.
Yeah, you're right. This is what happens when you have memories.
Yeah. We're
In
old
your
enough
brain.
to remember.
We're old enough to remember when Tim Walz, who was saying, we didn't embrace DEI, we didn't embrace illegal immigration, we didn't embrace wokeness enough. Well, you're the you're the team that as soon as she was in office and you joined, by the way, he joined after she promoted the fact that she was going to secure the border, keep illegal immigrants out of the country, and build a wall, and that Trump wasn't serious, and Walz joined after it.
He accepted and said, yes, I want to be a part of it.
Yes.
How dare you?
I mean, seriously, is this the ignorance is bliss drug that exists out there? Because really, that's a good drug.
Yeah.
I could become a drug addict if that actually, I can live in a delusional world and I never question it.
Right.
Now, that's a good drug.
Wow.
Huey Lewis, get on it. 866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Democrats respond to the administration saying, well, after 5 years, we're actually going to have people that took out loans for college from the government start paying it back. And Democrats don't like that at all, and saying they're fighting to cancel student loan debt. Understand that the Democrats can only sell this by line. They're not canceling the debt. They're not forgiving the loan. They're transferring it to other people who did not sign any contract. So if you're saying I was only 18 years old and I'm having to I didn't have the ability to understand what I was signing, understand there will be other 18-year-olds that are paying federal income tax because they're working that have to pay for what you did. Are they more responsible?
Well, I mean, I could say this. Because why 18? If I was any amount of years younger and made a stupid decision, I shouldn't be responsible for it. Because I didn't know then what I know now.
Right. I didn't understand well, that's BS because I was
crap.
17 when I was presented with that option. I knew exactly what was going on.
Exactly.
But we'll hear from one Democrat coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. All right, here's the audio cut from Representative Ro Khanna of California talking about student loan debt. Okay?
Breaking news. If you have student loans, Donald Trump announced today that you're going to have to start paying them back in May. For 5 years, there's been a forbearance on student loans. No one has had to pay these loans back to the government if they can't afford it. Donald Trump is changing that. You're going to now have to pay $500,000 a month if you have these student loans, even if you had a forbearance. And if you don't pay them, they are actually going to come after your paychecks to garnish your wages, and they can destroy your credit. Please stand up. Let's make sure that we don't allow Trump to go after those who had student loans. I took out over $100,000 in student loans. I knew how hard it was to pay it back and had to take forbearances. I'm going to fight to make sure that people are not going bankrupt because of Trump's policy.
Well, that was money well spent. $100,000.
And he writes, Trump is going to make you pay student loans starting in May.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fighting to cancel student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
You're not canceling it. Stop lying, Democrats. Because here's the morality is simple. Since there is no cancellation, and they use these words on purpose, we're going to forgive the loans, we're going to cancel the loans. They use those words on purpose because what they're making it sound like is the government's simply going to say, it magically disappears. This is the Seinfeld episode of write it off.
Well, the forgive thing, remember what they tried to do? Remember for a minute when they paused their booing of God and said, Jesus would want you to forgive. Remember that? They actually said that. We're going to forgive these loans. And isn't that what you would want? Isn't that what Jesus would want? To forgive the loans? They've tried everything here to manipulate the language on student loans. And then it sounds like he's bragging. I took out I'm a victim too.
Yeah.
100,000. Yeah, that was money well spent.
I'm a victim of my own choices.
That's right.
Please have pity on me. I'm a victim of my own choices.
Yeah.
I took out a loan.
I'm right there in the trenches with you.
I took out a loan, and I don't want to pay it. And because I took out the loan, I'm going to virtue signal that I'm a victim because I took out a loan for something that I wanted. I'm virtue signaling. I'm a victim of this oppressive society because I took out the loan and I don't want to pay it back.
Let's put it on other taxpayers who never went to college.
Right.
Who worked 2 jobs to make ends meet.
And the morality is simple. They cannot defend the immorality of stating that you took out the student loan and we're saying you shouldn't pay it, and somebody who did not take out the student loan should pay it for you.
Yeah.
They're not going to win that argument, so they have to lie and say things like, well, the government just writes it off. It's forgiven.
Write it off.
It's just canceled, as if there is this I don't know, cloud-like entity, and I mean cloud like the computers, that just exists out there, and it just the money just disappears and nobody is hurt. No, somebody else has to pay for your decisions. How is that fair? So they've got to lie and pretend that it's just forgiven. Why doesn't Trump want to do it? It just goes away. They just I mean, that's the Seinfeld episode.
Well, and there's a reason it was funny in Seinfeld.
Right. It was funny because it was like they just write it off.
Because it was a Kramer thought with no logic behind it.
Right. Right. Which only Kramer can do.
Exactly.
Like that.
That was a very liberal-esque approach to the reasoning that Kramer had, and there was a reason it was funny.
Right. Because we know nothing is just written off.
Right.
Everything's eventually got to be paid, and if something is written off in a business, then they up what they charge for other products to you to make up for that.
Right.
You know, and it's the same thing with credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
The reason if you have a bad credit rating, you pay more, and you can pay more for mortgages and whatever loans you get, is because you're more of a risk.
You actually pay more for insurance. You pay more for everything if you've got a lower credit score.
And the left believes that's unfair. Everybody should pay the same.
Right.
No, you're a greater risk.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
Same thing as we talked about car insurance, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on the risk that you have. They just want to throw that all out. And Ro Khanna's like, he really wants to make you believe that I took out 100,000 and I know what forbearance is like. I was forced to pay back my college loan. I mean, what kind of immorality is that? I made the choice to take somebody else's property.
Yeah.
I don't want to give their property back. I want you to give the property that I took back to them.
Right.
Oh, that's moral.
I'm a victim, too.
Yeah. Not only am I a victim, but I'm going to virtue signal that I'm a victim.
That's right. Wow.
I mean, the argument, number one, they have to lie to get to, they have to lie. I mean, they, as we've always said, they start on the wrong premise, that it's forgiven, forgotten, canceled, and it's not.
Right.
If I loan you money and I wish to cancel it, that means nobody else has to pay for it. I'm taking the hit.
Yeah.
Doesn't work that way. The taxpayer takes the hit. You're saying
We're
that
the bank.
You're saying that the morality is you took out a loan. I didn't know at 18 or 19. I didn't. I just thought you took the money and it was for free. I didn't. I'm a caveman. I'm a caveman 18-year-old. I'm not familiar with your complicated loan structures that you have.
I was only 40 when I got that credit card. Now I'm 60 and I know better. I shouldn't have to pay it back.
Like I said,
I didn't know that. It's a ridiculous argument admitting ignorance.
Yes. as a way to virtue signal that you're better.
I'm a victim because of my own ignorance. I didn't know. Poor me. He just did the same thing.
I know.
He's proud of his victimhood that he created in that $100,000 student loan that he took out, admittedly. Wow. I guess they didn't teach you what to promote and not to promote politically in that class, did they?
Well, apparently this is why we, many high schools now are putting in economics. You need to teach people about checkbooks. You need to teach them about loans. You need to teach them about a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me just see here. I'm looking at the responses, the first responses. If the college educated are so smart, why can't they pay off their own loans? Okay. Pay back your loan. Simple as that. This is a tax on me. Wow, this is great. I'm just reading them in order. And I did not pre-read this. Only there's no such thing as cancel. It means someone else pays, and it's not going to be me. Can you cancel my car loan while you're at it?
Yeah.
I don't want to pay for it anymore, even though I said I would when I took it out. I think someone else should have to pay for it. The next one, it's not canceling student debt. It's my tax money paying for someone else's debt. Why not make students with loans pay my credit card bills? Same exact thing.
Well, I'd say this, because we can compare the car loan, right? Because there's an asset tied to it. But you have an education, right? If you finished school, if you graduated, you have an education. So if you cancel the student loan, repossess the education, your sheepskin goes away.
Yeah.
Now are you in? They repossess the car, repossess the education. Now let's see how many people we have that are for it.
I'm going through here. I cannot find. And I've gone down through, about 20, 30. I cannot find anybody who is in agreement with him.
Yeah.
As I go down through this.
Right.
Yo, Roe. If you take out a loan and sign a promissory note to the bank, you owe the loan, not me. This is why strangers would not pay off my car payment if I asked.
Exactly.
Wow. And it just goes on and on and on and on. Wow. That's it. Really interesting. I'm sure if I went down, somebody would say, but it has to be. Well, right now I've gone through 50, maybe 75 of the comments as I scan down. Every single one is against what Ro Khanna has said. It's easy to decipher it because people understand debt.
Right.
You took it out, you're supposed to pay for it.
Right.
And the only excuse is, I didn't know. Well, that's not an excuse because I was 17 when I took out my college loan, and I knew.
Right.
I knew exactly what I was doing. Why? Well, I think they all know. They're just playing stupid. They're playing stupid. They're playing victim.
They're playing victim.
Yep.
I didn't know I was only 18.
By the way, he lists a figure as 500 or 1,000 you have to pay back a month. That's not the case.
Right. No, it
He
goes
said
back
that.
to where it was before Biden changed everything.
Right. It doesn't go back. It may, if you took out $100,000, you may have to pay that
Well,
a
depending
month.
on the principal amount, yeah.
Right. But, he's throwing that out. But then he brags that he took out $100,000 and he knows how hard. Do you know how hard it is? I took out a mortgage. I paid it. I had to pay it back, Eric. And now I own my house. I'm a victim.
Can't imagine. I can't imagine. What is with my creditors?
Well, you know something? Is Ro Khanna saying, is he angry because his degree was useless for him?
That's what I said. $100,000
Yeah.
seems like that money was well spent.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here we go again with this one. And it gets back to personal responsibility.
Right.
This may not be the argument that you want. Right after promoting illegal immigrant criminals, maybe this is not the next thing that you wish to fight.
Right.
But they're going to.
Oh, no, they're on it.
Trump is mean. He's horrible.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, it's like what they're saying is after 5 years of not having to pay, he's making you pay.
Right. Yeah.
After 5 years of not having to fulfill your responsibility and obligations, Trump's going to make you do it. He's Hitler.
And next
because
thing you
Hitler
know,
did this.
Next thing you know, he's going to make government employees go back to work and work to get paid. They want you to work to get your paycheck. That's where we are. Again, in a society that has been taught over and over again by the liberals, hey, it's okay to lay down. We'll still take care of you. You can lay down as much as you want. This is where they are. You don't have to pay that back. Because next will be, well, no, you don't have to pay back your debt. Remember during the COVID thing, the rise of nobody owns property. Nobody should own property. This is where I live. This is my dwelling. You rent it. You don't own it. You didn't buy it. You're not paying for it ultimately. You're not the one that put the investment in. They don't believe in paying what you owe.
Yeah. Your education is the service that you received for taking out the loan. You receive something for that.
That's the product.
Right.
That's what you got. Loan forgiven? Great. Hand over the sheepskin. It's over. Your education, your formal education is repossessed. That's how they do it when they do a foreclosure. That's how they do it when they do any asset-based loan. Hand it over. You get nothing.
Yes.
You've got nothing and no proof you were ever out of college.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So just expect that the whole student loan thing is going to blow up as Democrats are going to jump to the next thing, which is, okay, what are we going to do? Okay, it's unfair to ask anybody to pay back their student loan. But again, you're not going to win that one. It's like taking up, the defense for Garcia.
Right.
People look at it, and everybody takes out some kind of loan.
Right, yeah.
And nobody expects anybody else to pay it back. Except when student loans, it's viewed that that's different for the excuse that, well, they were young when they took it out, or they were ripped off. We thought this was really incredible from Occupy Wall Street. They said, this is terrible. These students weren't able to they were promised jobs that would be able to pay enough so they could pay off the loan, so the bank should suffer. Well, no, you picked the wrong oppressor. It would be the college that told you could get a good job in this curriculum.
Right.
Oh, I'm telling you.
It's not over, for sure.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We talked about the president over the last couple of days and what he has said on tariffs. One of the things that's scaring Republicans is the fact that, in fact, we had somebody write us earlier and say, well, the problem, the what you got to realize is we won't be able to feel the benefits of the tariffs from a year from now. I go back to Kellyanne Conway, who said small businesses have 2 to 4 weeks of lasting through this.
Yeah.
Not a year, not 2 years, not 4 years. And the problem is not that we shouldn't go after, for example, China. but it is the economics of it for the people of the United States. Are they willing to wait the number of years without Democrats winning in 2026, the midterms, and then the Trump agenda is dead, and then winning in 2028? And to give you an example of what the Democrats are going to do, I want to play this new ad that came out from Haley Stevens, who's a Democrat who is running for Gary Peters' seat in Michigan. Now, this election does not take place till November 3rd of 2026. This is the ad that she's currently running. All right, she's running early. She's already declared. All right, that she's going to run in it. Here is her first ad. This is why Republicans want this thing settled and settled now, and this is also why you see some of the backtracking from the president on this, because they don't want to see an ad like this in August of 2026. Here it is. This is Democrat Haley Stevens.
I remember being handed the keys to my first car. I'm Haley Stevens, and I bet you do too. That used Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, it meant more to me than just freedom. It meant I had a piece of Michigan. You know, the Michigan that helped build this country. The Michigan that shaped me. It's not just what I sound like, it's who I am. My dad was a teacher, and my mom ran a small business. Growing up in Michigan meant being surrounded by innovation, ingenuity, and pride in hard work. And from our farmers to our nurses to our manufacturers, Michigan has the best workers in the world. I always knew I wanted to spend my life fighting for Michigan. And when the Great Recession hit and the American car industry faced extinction, I wanted to step up and do something for my state. As Chief of Staff to President Obama's Auto Rescue, we helped save over 200,000 Michigan jobs and stabilize our economy.
The U.S. auto industry turnaround is undeniable.
And Haley Stevens, by the way, she was there. She was a critical part of my team that helped the American auto industry come roaring back.
But Donald Trump has a much different plan for Michigan. His chaos and reckless tariffs are putting tens of thousands of Michigan jobs at risk. Donald Trump says he couldn't care less if auto prices rise. Well, as someone who spent my time in Congress fighting for Michigan jobs, Michigan families, and Michigan workers, I couldn't care more. Across the state, I know we're all feeling the hit of higher prices. The same groceries cost more each month. Housing's more expensive than ever, but all we're getting is more chaos. What the heck are they doing? I'm Haley Stevens, and I'm running for Senate because just like that day I got these keys to that old Cutlass, we have the power to chart our own path. I'm proud of Michigan, and I'll never get tired of saying it. It would be my honor to fight for you in the Senate.
So there you go. You notice what the ad is about. Nothing on anything cultural, only economics.
Yeah.
That's it.
Very Michigan-centric.
Right. And as we had said when Trump came out and said it that day, we went, it's going to be used against him in an ad. When he said that, I couldn't, could care less if auto prices go up because of the tariffs. And we said it's going to be used against him for that. And that's why Republicans want this solved now. Because if it's solved now, that ad can't run in August of 26.
Right. Exactly.
And you don't want that ad running in 26. And that's the problem. The problem is not, the challenge. You're talking economics and you're talking the politics of economics. And that's why we had stated, and Republicans were, why didn't they do the reconciliation first and then do the tariffs afterwards?
Right.
Because nothing right now is pro-growth. They don't know. We had played earlier Steve Bannon, who's the biggest supporter of Trump, just pounding on the Republicans, pounding on Elon Musk, all these promises that are being made of $5,000, cash coming back, we're going to be able to cut, everything's going to be great. Because there's no $2 trillion, there's no $1 trillion being cut. Now it's $150 billion, and where are the cuts? Where are the promises that we said were coming in? And you look at the tariffs, it's not that they're not justified against countries that are involved in unfair trading practices. It's whether you can win if prices go up, jobs are lost, job growth is negative or not growing. Those are the things you're facing in the White House. You could see easily this week was responding to that. They don't know what to do right now.
Right.
The White House does not know what to do right now. And we had stated earlier, when you take on everything like this, the goal should have been over a period of years to isolate China by building free trade agreements, with the free world, and then isolating China because that's your real problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so understand this is what the Democrats are going to do. The Democrats believe that Trump is giving them exactly what they want, the ability to only focus on the economy because there was nothing else in that ad.
Well, and the thing is that the win here, I said the other day, if you get something announced that the market believes is permanent, you can't announce a deal with China because a deal with China is not going to happen overnight.
Well, they haven't even talked.
And so the only thing you can do is hit the pause button. And I said the other day, if the market believes it's fairly permanent and that Trump has changed his mind regardless of what he's saying, you could see a pop on the Dow that would be historic, another one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could.
But the point is, you have to get this behind you now before you get into the summer. The great thing about American politics is that there's always something brewing at the top. Don't make this it. Get this behind you. Whatever it's going to be, whatever the fix is going to be, it has to be announced soon.
And I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
I don't think there's anything aside from what I call the permanent pause or eternal pause. We're going to pause the tariffs while we work out a deal with China. That's the closest thing you could get to a deal.
Well, what you saw yesterday, we had, whether it was Kellyanne Conway, was Charles Gasparino from Fox Business News, whether it was what Steve Bannon was saying.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of concerns right now because, again, the messaging was all over the place yesterday again. And Charles Gasparino from Fox Business wrote this. The talk on Wall Street, based on their sources inside the White House, is that Team Trump is looking for a face-saving off-ramp on trade, even with China. It's why you see the conflicting responses out of Besant. They're an attempt to negotiate through the media, acting tough, but signaling the need for a deal, calling China's tariffs unsustainable because they are. I hear one possible way out of this is not to do any done deals, but to announce some broad outline reference that avoids what people inside the administration know but won't say. And that is an economic catastrophe if the original plan with China is implemented, given just how much U.S. businesses deal with the mainland and the rest of Asia. It won't be easy, primarily because China isn't even talking to us yet. That, and Besant said, no, we believe China wants to, get a deal done. Or Trump said, this will be great for China. They don't even know. They haven't talked to China. There's been no talks at all with China. But it said an economic catastrophe if the original plan with China is implemented, given just how much U.S. businesses deal with the mainland and the rest of Asia. It won't be easy, primarily because China isn't even talking to us yet. And the deals that they are poised to cut, say with India, just don't matter that much in the scheme of things. Trump inherited a lousy trade system, particularly with China, that takes advantage at every step. But you would think they would know that and plan accordingly, given the complexity of dealing with so many nations at the same time and all the other variables that are included in that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the problem that they have. And again, it's a sensitivity to prices. And as we said earlier, in all likelihood, what will solve this problem will be economics. Right. And economics is the American public. Like I said, we had a message earlier. But we have to stick this out because we'll hopefully see a change within a year. Republicans don't have a year.
No.
They don't have a year. And that commercial, when I saw that commercial, I went, yep, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, politically, there isn't a year, and also economically, there isn't a year. Because if there's less confidence or ongoing, I'll say it this way, if there's ongoing uncertainty over a year, that's chaos. You don't want to bet on that.
No, you don't want to bet on no investment for a year.
Right. Yeah, because at the very least, that cash is on the sidelines. You don't want that.
And so, yeah, that ad I thought was a great warning to the administration. This is how every single congressperson and senator that's how they'll run their ad.
Yeah.
Because if prices aren't coming down, or there's a recession, or a combination of both, not a lot of great growth, and prices not coming down, understand, as we said before, may not be fair, but there were a number of Democrats and independents that voted for Trump and believed him when he said prices will be coming down on day one.
Mm-hmm.
They believed him.
Yeah.
He said it. They believed him. We'll give him a shot. The American public has said, basically, you've got 6 months to show us. We're already, over 3 months into that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the challenge that this administration faces. And as I said earlier, and I've said it before, I believe Trump wants to do the best for America. Mm-hmm. But I just don't know what he actually thinks about economics and or tariffs, because they've been all over the place, the administration. Multiple times in a day, they will give out completely contradictory messages.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. You know, what I call the permanent pause or eternal pause is tempered with the positive effects on the market would be tempered by anything that's said along the way. Because it's not certainty. Because it's not a deal, and a deal won't be made soon.
Yeah, trade deals take a long time.
Without,
as I said before, yeah.
Without a massive concession on one side or the other. And I'm not expecting that from China. So, that's what you have there. Announcing a pause will give the market a pop, but it's going to be tempered by any positive effect will be tempered by anything that's said along the way.
And one of the problems that came out yesterday was the Fox News poll, and that Fox talked about it all day. The Fox News poll on the economy doesn't look good. It keeps going down.
Right.
And they talked about, look, it's a sensitivity between accomplishing what you want and the American public saying, well, fine, but I can't afford this.
Right. GDP now has it right now at negative 2.2. That's the Atlanta Fed for the first quarter GDP numbers, which come out next Wednesday. They issue an updated GDP now forecast later today.
It'll be interesting to see what happens if there is negative growth for the first quarter, what the administration does.
Well, because
May 3rd, the May 3rd, the auto tariffs are supposed to hit.
Right. So if you have on the 30th, if we're in negative territory for that first quarter, and then more tariffs hit a few days later, it's not a good week.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Harley Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Coming up on the bottom of the hour, the Supreme Court. You and I just talking about the Supreme Court looking at the whole thing of the Biden administration giving California the right to set standards, emission standards below what the country actually has, and the lawsuit filed by a number of groups. And the appeals court saying, well, those groups don't have standing, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that particular case. But we'll cover that coming up following the bottom of the hour because it is pretty interesting. They're actually not doing the merits of the case; it's just whether they have the ability to sue.
Whether these fuel makers have standing in this case, because the federal appeals court in D.C. said they do not; that it was market driven, which is ridiculous. No, this is state and federal policy driven, and they do have standing here. And it seems that, and just based on things that were said, even something said by Justice Kagan seemed to be moving in the direction that we believe they have standing, and this warrants further review. So. We'll see where it goes, but it is an interesting case because it might, I don't know, but it might set the tone for, depending on how it goes, set the tone for a number of emission standards, not just in California. So I guess we'll see. But we got that coming up here in just a bit. We'll expand on that.
And you see that there was nothing in SCOTUS blog on it because they were bought by the Dispatch.
Right. Now, they say and I got two different emails, one from Amy Howe's account and the other one from SCOTUS blog yesterday, saying that announcing they had been sold, but they say they're going to keep, SCOTUS blog going. But I'm guessing in the transition yesterday, there just wasn't coverage of that case for some reason. I don't know. I haven't checked Amy Howe's personal blog.
Yeah, there was nothing.
Or her individual
there was
blog.
Nothing on the website because I checked it. I'm like, did that not happen?
I didn't see anything from yesterday.
Those
at
arguments,
all.
and just the Dispatch is basically it's conservative, but it's the Never Trumpers, Jonah Goldberg, Stephen Hayes, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah,
Amy's very, very good at covering.
Amy is a great analyst, and we've read her stuff. I think she's been able to break it down. And to the best of the ability in any given case, plain English, a lot of those cases for us, which is required for me. But it is interesting to look at that because the emission standard thing, especially because as California goes, the rest of the country goes as more and more states move in that direction.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app, available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, the Supreme Court did hear oral arguments yesterday in the battle over California's authority to impose stricter vehicle emission rules than the rest of the country, a case now shaped by a Trump administration push to roll back state-led climate initiatives. At issue is whether a coalition of energy producers and royalty owners, including Diamond Alternative Energy, can sue over the Environmental Protection Agency's 2022 decision to grant California a Clean Air Act waiver. The waiver, reinstated under former President Joe Biden, allows the state to implement stricter vehicle emission standards to boost the electric vehicle industry. Critics who claim the regulation creates a de facto national electric vehicle mandate, as over a dozen states followed California's auto emission standards. The justices agreed only to weigh whether the challengers have standing to sue.
Yeah.
That is a procedural threshold that could determine whether similar regulatory challenges can proceed in the future. And you were telling me that that it looks like the judges, even Kagan, thought they did have standing.
Yeah.
The argument against them having standing was
that the federal appeals court in D.C., because they basically, took this to the higher court, and several of the justices basically were talking, appeared to be making the case that appeals court in D.C. erred when it barred the fuel makers' lawsuit on the theory that the market forces were driving the national push for EVs and nothing else. And then, of course, Justice Clarence Thomas was one of the first to chime in, and he said, well, wasn't the goal of the California regulations to reduce the use of the petitioner's fuel, the petitioners of the lawsuit? And again, that's what gives them standing. It
gives them standing because
this is not market driven as the appeals court, and then Kagan, didn't the EPA, in fact, in its submission to the courts, say that the effect of the reinstatement was going to be reduced gasoline emissions? And, and then Justice Kavanaugh, well, yeah, isn't that a tell here? And that is this waiver, this federal waiver for California that the Biden administration put into place, that the goal was to reduce gasoline emissions. Kagan asking that question, but also making a point. And so you have it here, and in fact, the attorney representing the EPA, and it goes back and forth. We know how this works. Edwin Needler was the man arguing for the EPA yesterday. He's retiring. Yesterday was his last argument before the high court. They actually applauded him at the end. The justices stood up and gave him applause for his 160 plus times before the court and his professional behavior and all of that. But he really didn't have much to say here because it's the Trump administration now. Administratively now, the EPA is reviewing this. And there was a question, okay, any idea how long the review process might take? I think Kagan might have asked that question too. Yeah, she did. Just out of curiosity, is there anything you can say about the timing of that process, that being the executive order signed by Trump asking the EPA to examine the issue, this review here? And he said, no, not at this point, because he can't tell you how long it's going to take. But ultimately, one question: do the petitioners have standing? And yes,
they do.
It's very clear that they do, and it's seen by the questions they were asking.
Well, let's explain what standing means. Standing, you get standing in a federal lawsuit like this because you've been damaged,
right? And it was specifically targeting their industry,
right?
These are fuel makers here,
right? The policy will cause you damage,
right? It was to reduce the use of their product.
But the incredible thing is, how can it be? Wow. I'd have to go back and read it to find out where the BS is in that ruling, because there's no way you can say that if California can put in more regulations to stop using fuel, that's market driven.
Right.
The whole purpose is they can't get it market driven, so they need government regulation in order to harm legally, in order to, because that's how you get standing,
right?
To harm these companies, by buying less of their product. Therefore, that's the harm.
Yeah, the entire goal is to eliminate the usage of their product,
right? That's
to put them out of business, under the guise of saving the planet.
If Kagan doesn't vote, let's see what her response is.
Yeah.
Now, we won't get this till what? June?
Yeah.
This is June?
Yeah. End of June, maybe.
Wow.
It'll be interesting to hear it, though. And see what's found here.
Well, we saw Maryland pulled out yesterday on it. They're not going to do it. But it's all going to fall apart.
Well,
we don't have.
I'll say this: the response to the government intervention here is market driven, because people can't afford when you talk about California and their mandate on EVs. Well, people can't afford that. The market can't afford EVs. So this mandate that they put in place that says new vehicles sold from 2035 on have to be EV only. Is there another lawsuit pending from OEMs? I don't know. I don't know if there are any OEMs that have no EVs in their lineup. I'd have to go back and I'm just wondering out loud here on the fly, clearly.
But this is another reason why we'll say it again. Why aren't the Republicans at least talking every day about getting rid of the Inflation Reduction Act, which gives close to $1 trillion to climate change initiatives to use more renewable fuel?
Right.
Why don't they axe it?
Right. Should have been out of the gates. They talked about it, and now I haven't heard much lately at all.
No. Well, let's be honest. Except for Trump's executive orders, what have the Republicans done? I'm willing to take shots of criticism for that.
Yeah, right.
What have the Republicans in Congress done, or what have the Republicans done besides Trump's executive orders?
Hey, there was that really awesome continuing resolution. Oh, wait. They continued a lot of the Biden stuff. Never mind.
But they did.
No, they absolutely. That's what they've done.
They did.
It's something I still to this day, as time goes on, don't know how Chuck and Jeffries over in the House didn't work that whole thing out.
Didn't spin it right.
Because the call would have been this. All right. Congressman Jeffries, Senator Chuck here. No, your burger's not ready yet. I'll let you know. But I put the cheese on it already. And here's what we're going to do. We know what they're doing here. They're forcing our hand. They know we're not going to sit on a closed government for long. But by doing this continuing resolution, they're continuing many of the Biden agenda items. Now, you guys can take your votes the way you do your votes there, but ultimately, we need to stand united in pointing it back to the GOP, thanking the GOP for continuing the Biden agenda and not implementing one thing from DOGE. How did they not see that?
I don't know, because they're so caught up on defending illegal immigrant criminals that they're just have this one-track mind.
Seriously.
Because, and by the way, we don't agree. We don't.
No.
We didn't want it to continue, but we're just saying politically how the Democrats could have played it out, but they're just so insane right now. They don't even see when they might have a temporary political advantage or something, maybe not even an advantage, but something to keep you even.
Right. Plenty of us conservatives.
And that's politically,
right.
not
Plenty of us conservatives made the point for them from the conservative point of view. We don't want any of the Biden agenda to continue. We didn't want any of that. We wanted some, at least look like you're going to implement, pretend, say, do something, show us, what do they call it? Framework.
Reference.
Reference.
A framework reference.
A framework reference of sorts. Something. Pretend like you're being responsible for a moment. That's the point, is that they could have taken that as liberals and used that, but they can't do this. And it is because they're too busy. They're buried in their agenda of now. And right now, by golly, we're going to get that MS-13 member back to the American soil where he doesn't belong.
Oh, did you see Margot Cleveland in one of the briefs yesterday? She said this may be I think it was Margot Cleveland who said it in the analysis of one of the briefs that was filed, that this may be the Trump administration getting ready to get Garcia out of El Salvador, bring him back, and immediately send him.
Oh.
And they even mentioned Gitmo or Gaza.
Oh, wow. Gaza. Wow. It's the first time a lawyer will be heard saying, you better pray you get Gitmo.
Yeah, and there was another country they had in there too. I just can't remember what it was. I just happened to see the headline.
Yeah.
Right before I went to sleep, and then I just realized it now. I just realized, when I went to sleep, I saw that, and I didn't bookmark it. I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah. Right.
Because that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because she said it was something the administration didn't fight, which she said, are they planning on grabbing him and then doing, grabbing him, bringing him back, or grabbing him and then just without the Alien Act.
Right.
Using just the normal processes to kick him out of the country. Because everything else has been approved.
Right. First of all, you go back, you go through the process, right? But you also are setting up a massive, rally-type protest for the liberals to be a part of. They're going to be in the cameras everywhere, fighting for him to stay in the United States the moment he lands. Wow. Which is bad for them. These are horrible optics, and they don't get it.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it, because that was really interesting what I read yesterday.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find it during the break here.
Yeah.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, right now, because why? Our show ends in an hour. So after our show is done, what happens is we record the entire show. When the show is done, well, then it appears on our Red Eye Radio app. You can listen to it anytime. And that's the whole point. A lot of people wake up to us, maybe at 3:30, 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Listen for an hour and a half, and they got stuff to do. They have to go to work. This gives you an opportunity to listen to the beginning of the show, or vice versa. If you catch the beginning of the show and wish to catch the end, you can do that. And if you cannot listen to the show on one of our great radio stations while we are on live, for whatever reason, you can listen live on our Red Eye Radio app as we stream all 5 hours live.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming up following the top of the hour, I was telling you, I had seen this yesterday, and I did find it from Margot Cleveland, talking about what might happen to Garcia after the administration's sealed motion to stay discovery on it. And it's really, really fascinating. And she gives her guess of what's going on. And her guess is, I'll give you the specific details, that they're going to try to get him out and then immediately send him somewhere else.
Wow. Interesting.
Now, where?
Interesting.
I did say Gaza's not a part of it.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay.
I saw Garcia, and I read it Garza.
Oh.
Gaza, excuse me. Gaza.
Yeah.
I saw Garcia, and I read it Gaza.
Okay.
But
All right.
Gitmo is on the list.
I was wondering how they would work that out with Gaza, because that,
I saw. Sorry,
drop them off and say good luck.
I saw it before I went to sleep.
I
don't even know if I had my reading glasses on.
Well.
That's how we do show prep, right?
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.